with Spirit speaking, here's a few moments I like to call the Cosmic Giggles. You know, those situations in life that all of us have had, where something happens that just ticks you off, and later a light bulb goes off in your head when you suddenly realize that while you were busy doing damage control in the 3D, the universe may have been quietly running the bigger picture. And when that bulb is finally lit, sometimes the whole thing turns out to have been nothing short of a one-act comedy show. This is what happens when we skip the check-in. So there you are, trying to be mature, trying to be peaceful, trying to be the kind of person who doesn't let one tiny thing take over the entire emotional household and start rearranging the furniture. Something happened. Nothing catastrophic. Nobody burned your house down. Nobody stole your identity. Nobody stood in the town square with a microphone and announced your deepest insecurity to the public. No. Someone just said something a little off. Maybe it was a comment. Maybe it was their tone. Maybe it was the look. Maybe it was one of those tiny social moments where technically nothing happened, but your spirit, your nervous system, and your left eyebrow all said, "Excuse me?" And at first you try to handle it well. You say, "I'm just going to let it go." Beautiful. Spiritual. Mature. Very suspicious. Because the second a human says, "I'm going to let it go," there's usually a part of them that has absolutely no intention of doing that. Spirit gently whispers, "Let it pass." And that's when ego kicks the door open with a headset and a clipboard. "All right, nobody move. Letting go is now under investigation." Suddenly, this is no longer a small moment. This is a case file. Ego starts pacing the room like it has been personally appointed director of unsolved emotional commentary. Before we release this, we need to understand it. Before we understand it, we need to replay it. Before we replay it, we need to assign meaning. And before we assign meaning, we need to call 3 imaginary witnesses. Spirit says, "Beloved, you can just let it go." Ego says, "Not without a full review." So now you replay the moment just once, just to understand it. Except it's never just once. You replay the exact sentence in your mind. Then you replay the tone. Then you replay the facial expression. And then you replay where they were standing, where you were standing, what the lighting was like, what you said before, what they said after, and whether their left shoulder seemed emotionally dismissive. You tell yourself, "I'm not upset, I'm just processing." No, beloved, you are building a documentary. You are mentally producing a 6-part series called "The Moment That Should Not Have Bothered Me But Clearly Did." And ego is directing the whole thing. Roll the footage again. Zoom in on the pause. Enhance the tone. Bring up the emotional subtleties. Spirit says, "It may not have meant anything." Ego says, "That is exactly why it needs to have some meaning." Now you're in the kitchen, but you're not really in the kitchen. Your body is making tea, and your mind is still back at the scene. You open the cupboard and forget why you opened it. You pick up a mug, then you put it down, then you pick up a different mug, because apparently now even the mug has to support the emotional investigation. You say it out loud, "I don't even care," which is always a sign that you care deeply, because nobody says "I don't even care" with that much punctuation unless there is a full marching band of caring right in behind it. Spirit whispers, "Come back to yourself." Ego says, "Not yet, we need closure." Ah, closure. That word humans use when ego wants to keep thinking about it, but make it sound healthy. Now you start imagining what you should have said. And this is where the episode really begins. Because the version of you in your imagination, oh, she is just incredible. Calm, powerful, articulate. She has perfect posture, perfect timing, and perfect emotional boundaries. She does not stumble. She does not soften a sentence. She does not say "ha ha" at the end to make everyone comfortable. No. Imaginary you turns slowly, makes direct eye contact, and delivers a response so graceful, so devastating, so spiritually evolved that the birds stopped flying just to listen. In real life, you said, "Oh, okay." But in the replay, you are a courtroom attorney, a poet, a therapist, a motivational speaker all at once. Ego is beside you with the clipboard, nodding proudly. Excellent. This is the response we should have delivered 17 minutes ago. Spirit says, the moment is over. Ego says, not in post-production. So now you start having imaginary conversations. Not just one, several. There's the calm conversation. Then there's the bold conversation. Then the slightly petty conversation that you would never actually have, but still enjoy rehearsing. The spiritual conversation where you rise above it beautifully. The dramatic conversation where they finally understand the emotional impact of their tone and apologize while soft piano music plays in the background. And then, because ego is committed, you rehearse the version where you explain everything clearly so that not only do they have to apologize, but they have to evolve. They suddenly become a better person because of your imaginary speech. They go home, light a candle, stare out a window and say, wow, I had no idea. Meanwhile, Spirit is standing there like, or you could just take a breath. But ego's now on a roll. We're not breathing, we're preparing a statement. Now the tiny thing has followed you into the next room, then into the car, then into the shower. And the shower, for some reason, is where ego really gets creative. Because nothing brings out a powerful imaginary speech like shampoo. You're standing there under the water, suddenly delivering the most eloquent closing argument of your life to someone who isn't there. And it is good, too good. You almost wish they could hear it. You even pause mid-shampoo and think, that was actually a really good point. Ego says, we should write that down. Spirit says, please do not turn this into a notes app entry. Too late. Now you're drying your hands so you can open the notes app and type one sentence. Just one sentence. Except now one sentence becomes 3 paragraphs. 3 paragraphs become a speech. The speech becomes a letter you will absolutely never send but still need to title it. You call it something dramatic like, what I wish I had said. Ego says, powerful. Spirit says, this is not letting go. Ego says, it's organized release. No, beloved, it's emotional scrapbooking. Now you decide you need to talk it out. Not because you're still attached. No, of course not. You're just seeking perspective. So now you call someone. You begin with, I'm not really making a big deal out of this, which is how everyone knows a big deal is arriving. You explain the situation, but you explain it fairly. Very fairly. Except somehow in your very fair retelling they sound ridiculous and you sound like a peaceful woodland saint who was verbally attacked near the produce aisle. Your friend says, that was weird. And that's all that ego needed. Ego slams the clipboard down. Validation received. We are reopening the case. Now you feel justified. Now you're not upset. You are correct. And correct is a dangerous place for the human ego to sit. Because once ego feels correct, it starts redecorating the whole inner world with evidence. You think about all of the other times this person said something strange. You begin to connect patterns, and you remember small details from months ago. How ego has already rented the hall, invited the committee, printed the agenda, and ordered the refreshments for the emotional hearing. Spirit says, this may not need your whole life story attached to it. Ego says everything is connected. And that's when you finally look up, give your head a shake, and Spirit gives you the cosmic wink. That's when you look up,